The scream ripped through the mountains before the sun had fully cleared the ridge. It wasn't the cry of an animal. It wasn't the wind. It was human, raw, terrified. Evelyn Hart dropped the axe. It struck the frozen earth blade first, vibrating once before going still. Her breath came out in sharp white clouds as she turned in a slow circle, heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Hello," she called. Only pine trees answered. Tall, endless, silent witnesses that never spoke when you needed them to. She forced herself to breathe. Fear had a way of resurrecting ghosts, and Evelyn had buried too many to let them claw their way back out. She bent, pulled the axe free, and went back to work. The cabin frame stood half-raised in the clearing. Thick pine logs stacked with stubborn defiance, corners notched by hand. No power tools, no help, just grit, splinters, and memory. One log at a time. Her shoulders burned as she hoisted another length of timber into place. The muscles in her arms screamed, but pain had long ago become background noise. Pain was predictable. Pain didn't lie. A gust of wind barreled down the slope, rattling branches and howling through the half-built walls. The sound felt like a warning. Then she felt it. Eyes. Evelyn froze. She didn't turn right away. She had learned that lesson the hard way. Panic invited mistakes. Instead, she slowly shifted her weight, fingers tightening around the axe handle. "Don't." A man's voice said from behind her. Calm. Steady. Too close. Her pulse spiked. She turned. He stood at the edge of the clearing, framed by trees and early morning light. Tall, broad-shouldered. A cowboy. Straight out of the land itself, dust clinging to his coat like it belonged there. His horse stood behind him, reins loose, unbothered. He wasn't holding a weapon. That somehow made it worse. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "Funny," she replied, lifting the axe just enough to make a point. "That's what they all say." Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe, or regret. "You screamed," he said. "I thought someone was injured." "I didn't scream." He hesitated. "Then someone did." Her stomach tightened. "You alone out here?" he asked. She didn't answer. The silence stretched, taut as wire. "I'm Caleb," he said finally. "I ride fence to the ranch south of this ridge. This land isn't yours." "I know." "Then why are you standing on it?" "Because someone's been threatening settlers," he said. "And because no one builds a cabin this far out without a reason." Evelyn studied him. His eyes were tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. The kind that came from carrying responsibility too long, without relief. "I don't need protection," she said. "I didn't offer it." That surprised her. She lowered the axe a fraction. "Then what do you want?" He glanced at the cabin frame, the raw edges, the careful joins. To understand why someone would work this hard just to be alone. Her grip tightened. "Maybe I'm not building a cabin," she said quietly. "Maybe I'm rebuilding a life." Caleb didn't respond right away. "That takes courage," he said finally. She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "No, it takes desperation." Before he could reply, a distant engine growled. Both of them stiffened. The sound came from the eastern trail. Too close. Too familiar. Evelyn's face drained of color. "They found me," she whispered. Caleb's jaw clenched. "Who?" She swallowed. "Men who think land belongs to whoever's cruel enough to take it." The truck burst into the clearing, rusted, dented, roaring like an insult to the quiet. Gravel sprayed as it skidded to a stop. 3 men climbed out, boots hitting dirt with practiced ownership. One of them grinned when he saw Evelyn. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "Thought you'd learn by now." Caleb stepped forward, placing himself between them and her, without hesitation. "This doesn't concern you," the man continued, eyes flicking to Caleb with irritation. "We're collecting what's owed." "I don't owe you anything," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her ribs. The man laughed. "That's not how it works." Caleb spoke then, voice low but carrying. "You got papers?" The laughter stopped. "You law," the man sneered. "No," Caleb replied. "But I'm not blind either." The tallest of the three stepped closer, hand resting on his belt. You should walk away, cowboy. Behind Caleb, Evelyn's knees trembled. She had run from men like this. Changed her name. Buried her past under pine needles and sweat and hope. And still they had come. Caleb didn't move. You don't scare easy, the man said. Neither do you, Caleb replied, which makes you dangerous. The man's eyes hardened. Last chance. Caleb exhaled slowly. Mine or yours? The gun came out fast. Too fast. The sound exploded through the clearing. Evelyn screamed this time. Caleb staggered, but didn't fall. Silence crashed down, heavier than the gunshot. Caleb looked at his shoulder. Blood soaked through his coat. Then he lifted his eyes and smiled. That, he said evenly, was a mistake. As Caleb reached for something beneath his coat and the men raised their weapons again, Evelyn realized survival would demand more than courage. It would demand truth, and she had been running from hers for far too long. The echo of the gunshot still hung in the air, vibrating through the trees, like a warning the mountains themselves wanted to remember. Evelyn couldn't breathe. Caleb stood in front of her, blood seeping dark and slow through the shoulder of his coat, yet his spine remained straight. His boots were planted like roots driven deep into the soil. He did not stagger again. He did not curse. He did not beg. The men noticed that too. You're still standing, the tallest one muttered, more annoyed than impressed. Caleb's eyes never left him. You shoot to scare, he said. That tells me you don't want witnesses. The man sneered. We just don't like interference. Evelyn's mind raced. This was how it always started. Raised voices, false confidence, then violence disguised as business. She had seen it before. She stepped forward despite the fear clawing at her throat. Leave, she said. You've taken enough. The man turned toward her slowly, his smile thin and ugly. You always say that. Caleb's head snapped toward her. You know them. She didn't answer. The silence screamed louder than any confession. Get back, Caleb murmured without turning. Please. I won't hide anymore, Evelyn said, surprising even herself. Her voice shook, but it didn't break. That's what they want. The man laughed. You hear that? She's grown a spine. Evelyn locked eyes with him. Her hands trembled, but she clenched them into fists. You burned my house. You lied in court. You took everything that wasn't nailed down, and some things that were... The smile slipped. Caleb felt it then, the shape of the truth forming behind her words. You ran. The man snapped. We finished what was left. No, she said quietly. You didn't. She gestured to the cabin behind her, the logs, the work, the stubborn proof. I rebuilt. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the shortest of the three men spat on the ground. Boss, let's just end this. Caleb shifted slightly. Pain flared through his shoulder, sharp and hot. He ignored it. Walk away, he said again. You don't want what comes next. The tall man's eyes flicked toward the trees, calculating. You got friends hiding out there, cowboy? No, Caleb replied, but I've got something better. What's that? Time, he said, and the law's been catching up to you for a while. The man scoffed. Bluff. Caleb smiled faintly. Test it. Evelyn stared at him. Was he lying? Or had fate finally decided to take her side? The man lifted his rifle again. Before he could fire, a voice rang out from the tree lean. Drop it. All heads turned. A woman stepped into the clearing, coat buttoned tight, badge flashing in the sunlight. She moved with authority, hand steady on her weapon. Sheriff, Caleb said, exhaling. The men froze. You boys are trespassing, the sheriff said coolly, and assaulting a man on record. The tall man's jaw tightened. This is a civil matter. Funny, she replied. Civil matters don't usually involve guns. She nodded toward Caleb's bleeding shoulder. Hands up, all of you. The men hesitated, then slowly complied. Evelyn's knees finally gave out. She sank onto a log, breath shuddering as the adrenaline drained from her body. The sheriff approached her gently. You Evelyn Hart? Evelyn looked up, eyes glossy. I was... The sheriff nodded. "We've been looking for you." Fear surged again. "Why?" "Because someone tried very hard to make you disappear," the sheriff said. "And because your testimony could put a lot of powerful people away." Evelyn's chest tightened. "I tried to report it. No one listened." The sheriff's expression softened. "They will now." Caleb swayed slightly. Evelyn noticed immediately. She jumped up and rushed him, catching his arm. "You're hurt." "Just a scratch," he said, but his face was pale. "Sit," she ordered. He obeyed. As the sheriff cuffed the men and radioed for backup, Evelyn pressed her hands against Caleb's wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Why did you do that?" she whispered. "Do what?" "Stand there. For me." He met her eyes. "Because my wife died waiting for someone to help her," he said quietly. "And I promised myself I'd never be the man who looked away." Something broke open inside her. The sirens approached in the distance. But relief didn't come, because Evelyn knew the truth. This wasn't over. Men like that didn't lose once and walk away. And the secrets she carried were heavier than any log she'd ever lifted. As the sheriff led the men away, one of them turned back and smiled at her. "We'll see you again," he said softly. Evelyn felt the cold certainty settle in her bones. The mountain was quiet once more, but danger had learned where she lived. As the sheriff promised protection, and Caleb struggled to stay conscious, Evelyn realized the past wasn't just chasing her anymore. It was preparing to strike back harder than ever. Night came early in the mountains, sliding down the slopes like a hell breath finally released. The cabin glowed from within for the first time. Firelight flickered against raw pine walls, casting long, restless shadows. The wind still prowled outside, but it sounded different now. Less like a threat, more like a warning whispered too late. Caleb sat on a rough wooden chair near the hearth, his injured shoulder wrapped in clean cloth, blood already darkening through. He hadn't complained once. That somehow made Evelyn angrier than if he had. "You should be in a hospital," she said, pacing. "I've been in worse places," he replied calmly. "That doesn't make this better." "No," he admitted, "but it makes it familiar." She stopped pacing and looked at him, really looked, the way his jaw tightened when he shifted, the way his eyes tracked the door every time the wind rattled it. "You don't sleep much," she said. He smiled faintly. "You notice everything." "Habit." Silence settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Outside, the sheriff's patrol lights disappeared down the trail hours ago, promises of protection echoing emptily in the clearing. Evelyn had nodded, smiled, thanked her, but she didn't believe in promises anymore. "You didn't tell her everything," Caleb said quietly. Evelyn's breath hitched. "You didn't tell her everything either," she shot back. He accepted that with a nod. The fire cracked. A log shifted. Evelyn sank onto a bench across from him, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "They weren't just after land," she said. "They were after silence." Caleb waited. "My husband, Daniel, he worked for them. Accounting. He found discrepancies. Payments that didn't make sense. Shell companies. Names that didn't exist." Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "When he asked questions, they told him to forget what he saw." Caleb's face darkened. "He didn't," she continued. "They made it look like an accident. A fall. The coroner signed off. The town moved on. But you didn't." "No," she whispered, "because they forgot one thing." She reached into a small metal box beneath the bench and pulled out a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Her hands shook as she unwrapped it. Ledgers, flash drives, old receipts, notes written in Daniel's neat, careful handwriting. "I took copies," she said. "I ran before they could realize what was missing." Caleb exhaled slowly. "That's why they keep coming. That's why they won't stop." A gust of wind slammed against the cabin, rattling the door. Caleb stood abruptly, pain flaring across his face. He moved to the window, peering into the darkness. "What is it?" Evelyn asked. "Nothing," he said, but his tone betrayed him. She joined him, heart pounding. Beyond the firelight, the trees stood motionless, too motionless. Then a sound. Footsteps. Soft, careful. Caleb's hand dropped his belt. Evelyn's breath caught. The sheriff said, "I know what she said," he murmured, "and I know what men like them do when they feel cornered." The footsteps circled the cabin. Once, twice, a shadow passed a window. Evelyn's pulse roared in her ears. They promised protection. Caleb met her eyes. You can't outsource courage. A knock came at the door. 3 sharp raps. Evelyn flinched. "Sheriff." Caleb called. No answer. The knock came again, harder this time. Evelyn's fingers closed around the axe, leaning by the wall. "Open up." A voice called, not one she recognized. Caleb shook his head slightly. "Don't." The door handle rattled. "Last chance." The voice said, "We know you're in there." Caleb moved in front of Evelyn, shielding her with his body. The door burst inward, was splintered. A man stumbled inside and froze when he saw Caleb. It wasn't one of the 3 from earlier. This one was older, better dressed, eyes sharp with calculation. "Well," the man said softly, "this complicates things." Evelyn's blood ran cold. She knew him. "You," she whispered. The man smiled thinly. "Hello, Evelyn." Caleb felt her tremble. "Who is he?" he demanded. "The reason no one believed me," she said. "The man who signed the reports, who called Daniel's death unfortunate." The man glanced at Caleb's bandaged shoulder. "You look hurt." "Leave," Caleb said. "Now." The man chuckled. "You're not in a position to make demands." Behind him, 2 more figures appeared in the doorway, armed. Evelyn raised the axe. "I won't run again." "That's a shame," the man said, "because this ends one way." Caleb shifted, pain screaming through him. "You're making a mistake." "No," the man replied. "I'm correcting one." He stepped forward, and Evelyn realized something terrifying. This wasn't a threat. It was a cleanup. The fire crackled loudly as if the cabin itself was listening. The man raised his hand. "Kill him," he said. The guns lifted. Evelyn's scream tore through the night, and the lights outside suddenly flared bright white, engines roaring. "Sheriff's office," a voice thundered. "Drop your weapons." Chaos erupted. The men spun around, shouting, guns swinging. Caleb lunged, tackling the nearest attacker, despite the pain. The axe fell from Evelyn's hands as she scrambled back. Gunshots exploded. Glass shattered. The cabin filled with smoke and shouting. Evelyn crawled toward the metal box, clutching it to her chest like a lifeline. The older man locked eyes with her across the chaos. His expression was cold. Final. He bolted. "Caleb!" Evelyn screamed. Caleb struggled to his feet, blood soaking through his bandage. He staggered toward the door, then collapsed to one knee. The sheriff's deputies poured in, shouting commands, tackling suspects. But the man who mattered was already gone. Evelyn rushed to Caleb, pressing her hands against his wound again, tears blurring her vision. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please." He looked up at her, eyes steady despite the pain. "They're scared now," he said. "That's when they're most dangerous." The sirens wailed louder, closer. Evelyn clutched the evidence tighter, because she finally understood. The mountain remembered everything, and it wasn't finished demanding justice. As helicopters swept the tree-line and Caleb slipped toward unconsciousness, Evelyn realized a man who escaped wasn't running. He was preparing to destroy the truth once and for all. Dawn broke like a wound reopening. Gray light seeped through the trees, cold and unforgiving, illuminating what the night had tried to hide. The clearing was torn apart. Tire tracks scarred the earth. Splintered would litter the ground, and the cabin stood wounded but upright, smoke still whispering from its chimney. Evelyn stood barefoot in the frost, wrapped in a borrowed jacket, watching as deputies moved with quiet urgency. Radios crackled. Evidence bags snapped shut. The mountain, indifferent as ever, bore witness without judgment. Caleb lay on a stretcher near the patrol trucks, and Ford taped his arm, his face pale against the dark fabric beneath him. He was alive. The paramedic had said it twice, as if repetition might make Evelyn believe it. Alive to mean safe. She walked toward him, each step heavy, as if the ground itself resisted her moving forward. "You should be resting." the sheriff said gently, falling into step beside her. I will, Evelyn replied, after I know he's staying. The sheriff nodded. He's stubborn. That helps. Evelyn almost smiled. Caleb's eyes opened as she reached him. You look like hell, he murmured. So do you, she shot back, her voice breaking despite the attempt at humor. He reached for her hand. His grip was weak, but it was there. They didn't get it, he said. Her breath caught. The evidence? He nodded slightly. You held on. I always do. The sheriff cleared her throat. We caught 2 more last night. One talked. Evelyn stiffened. About what? About a meeting, the sheriff said. Tonight, Old Mill by the river. Caleb's jaw tightened. That's where they'll burn whatever's left. And kill whoever's left, Evelyn added quietly. The sheriff met her gaze. We need you. Silence fell. Caleb turned his head toward Evelyn sharply. No. She squeezed his hand. This ends tonight. It's a trap. I know, she said. That's why it works. The sheriff exhaled slowly. We can protect you, but we can't prove intent without the documents. Not unless you testify. Evelyn looked toward the trees, the cabin, the life she'd been trying to build one log at a time. She thought of Daniel, of the night she'd whispered his name into the dark, promising she wouldn't let his death be reduced to paperwork and silence. I'll testify, she said. Caleb's eyes searched her face. Once you step into that room, you can't go back. I already burned the bridge behind me, she replied. I just didn't light the match. The old mill smelled like oil, rot, and desperation. Rain fell in a steady, miserable sheet, soaking the ground and muting sound. Floodlights cut through the darkness, illuminating rusted machinery and warped beams. Shadows jumped and twisted like guilty thoughts. Evelyn stood near the entrance, wire hidden beneath her collar, heart pounding so hard she feared it might give her away. Across the room, the man, the one who'd ordered Caleb killed, paced like a caged animal. Where is it? He snapped. No idea, one of the men replied nervously. She's stubborn. That woman is a disease, the man hissed, and diseases get eradicated. Evelyn's fingers curled into fists. She stepped forward. I'm right here. The room went silent. The man turned slowly, disbelief flashing across his face before morphing into fury. You're braver than I thought, or stupider. Funny, she said steadily. Daniel used to say the same thing about you. The name hit like a blow. You should have stayed buried, the man said. I tried, she replied. You wouldn't let me? He gestured sharply. 2 men grabbed her arms, dragging her forward. You think you win because you survived? He sneered. I own this town. I own the judges. I own the truth. Evelyn met his gaze. Not anymore. A sound cut through the rain. Sirens. Lights flared outside. The man's face twisted. Kill her. The men hesitated. Then chaos erupted. Doors burst open. Deputies flooded in, shouting commands. Shots rang out, deafening an enclosed space. Evelyn was shoved to the ground as bodies collided, metal screamed, and the truth finally refused to stay buried. The man ran. Evelyn scrambled to her feet, sprinting after him through the rain-soaked yard. Her lungs burned, boots slipping in the mud. Stop, she screamed. He turned at the edge of the river, gun raised, eyes wild. You should have let it go, he shouted. No, she said, rain streaking down her face like tears. You should have told the truth. He fired. The shot missed, wide, desperate. A second shot rang out. The man froze, shock spreading across his face as he dropped to his knees. Behind him, Caleb stood, supported by a deputy, gun shaking in his hand. I told you, Caleb said hoarsely. You made a mistake. The man collapsed into the mud. The rain washed the blood away, carrying it toward the river. Evelyn fell to her knees, sobbing, not from fear this time, but release. The truth had survived, but as she looked up at Caleb, barely standing, she realized something else. Survival had a cost, and the final reckoning wasn't over yet. As paramedics rushed in and the man was dragged away in cuffs, Evelyn realized justice would demand more than arrests. It would demand a choice that could change her life forever. The courtroom was quieter than the mountains. No wind, no birds, no mercy in the stillness. Evelyn sat at the witness table, hands folded, spine straight, eyes forward. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating dust in the air like suspended breath. Every creak of the wooden benches sounded too loud. Every cough a disruption to the gravity of the moment. Behind her, rows of people filled the gallery. Some curious, some afraid, some angry that the truth had finally found daylight. Caleb sat 2 rows back, his shoulders still in a sling, jaw tight with tension. Beside him were his 2 children, small hands clasped together, eyes fixed on Evelyn like she was holding something precious for them. Maybe she was. "Please state your name for the record," the judge said. "Evelyn Hart," she replied clearly. "And you are testifying of your own free will?" "Yes." Her gaze flicked briefly toward the defense table. The man sat there in a tailored suit, face expressionless, eyes cold. Power had always wrapped itself around him like armor, but today, something had cracked. He knew it. She could see it. "Tell the court what happened," the prosecutor said. Evelyn inhaled slowly. She spoke of Daniel, of the ledgers, of threats disguised as warnings, of fire and lies and silence bought with fear. She spoke without rushing, without anger, only truth. As she talked, faces in the courtroom shifted, murmurs rippled, notes were taken, lies unraveled. When she finished, the room was utterly still. The defense attorney stood. "Ms. Hart," he said smoothly, "isn't it true you fled town without filing a formal report?" "Yes," she replied. "So you ran." "I survived." A beat. "And you expect this court to believe that a respected official orchestrated all of this?" Evelyn met his gaze. "I don't expect belief," she said evenly. "I brought proof." The evidence was entered. The room changed. Truth has weight. Once it lands, it cannot be lifted easily. The verdict came hours later. Guilty, on all counts. The man didn't look at her as he was led away. He didn't need to. She had already taken everything that mattered. Spring came slowly to the mountain. Snow retreated inch by inch, revealing new growth where scars had been. The cabin stood finished now, solid, straight, smoke rising peacefully from its chimney. Evelyn drove the last nail into the porch railing and leaned back, breathing in the scent of pine and possibility. "You missed a spot," a small voice said. She turned to see Caleb's daughter, Lily, pointing at a corner of the railing with serious authority. Evelyn smiled. "I didn't I?" Caleb approached with his son, Noah, both carrying a bundle of wildflowers. Caleb's arm had healed, but the memory of pain still lingered in the careful way he moved. "Thought the place could use these," he said. Evelyn accepted them, her throat tightening. "It already feels like it does." They stood together on the porch, watching the children chase each other through the clearing, laughter echoing where fear once lived. "I never planned to stay," Evelyn admitted quietly. "I just needed somewhere to breathe." "And now?" Caleb asked. She looked at the cabin, the land, the life she had built one log at a time. "Now I know why," she said. Caleb nodded. "My kids asked me something last night." "What?" "They asked if this could be home." Emotion rose fast and unexpected. "And what did you tell them?" He looked at her, eyes steady, hopeful but not demanding. "I said home isn't a place you own. It's a place that lets you stay." Evelyn swallowed hard. She stepped forward, placing her hand over his. "Then tell them yes." The wind moved through the trees, gentle now, almost approving. The mountain had tested them. They had endured. And what stood before them wasn't just a cabin. It was proof that truth survives, love rebuilds, and even the deepest injustice can be overcome when courage refuses to stand alone. Evelyn looked out at the land and smiled. This time, she wasn't building to escape. She was building to belong.